Stage 15 was another big day in the Pyrenees, and the grim fact for anyone who wanted to displace Michael Rasmussen from the race lead was that they had to attack the reigning king of the mountains in his natural habitat. There were 5 cols to get over on the road to loudenvielle, and the action looked likely to be reserved for the last climb of the day, the Col de Pyrenees. Incredibly, Alexander Vinokourov, out of the running for the conventional race, but now leading the alternate day Tour de France, was at the head of the race on his own when it hit the Pyrenees.
Let's go back to the chase group with a group that contains all of the favourites, and none has made a move. They've been completely depressed here by a brilliant Rabobank team today. And we're looking a little bit further back here at Michael Albacini. He was up in the leading group. He's now also in the spot of bother, but he's hanging on in there as we head up towards the top of the Col de Pyrenees.
Also slipping back here, Laurent Lefebvre. He was in the early 25-man breakaway group this morning, and Albacini said, I'm going to stay in contact here, and finds a little bit extra, but I have to warn him, you don't need to push yourself too much in a day like this, because you've still got the steepest part of the Col d'Aubisque, and Popovic has finally dropped back. He is a fighter, though, this man.
I don't know how he's doing it. We must have picked up those riders as well. We never saw them caught from the lead group, and Popovic also in trouble now. And just this is Schleck here checking out the field, excuse me, as we're looking still at the pacemaking of the Rabobank tandem there. Well, I don't know why they didn't attack and find out just how strong Rasmussen was, but they didn't, which indicates to me they couldn't.
Well, that was probably the order of the day. I think everybody in that group there is probably just very happy to be able to stay in contact with Michael Rasmussen. This, though, the Kazakhstan Railways rider here is Alexander Vinokourov, charging up towards the summit. You've got to really appreciate the Basque fans, Phil, because they are cheering everybody home.
They're wonderful. Well, he's on track for a win. I have to get that one in, Paul. Here we go. As he's gone round the corner, he just will turn a hairpin left, climb over the summit, and he'll plunge down to the valley below. Still, it's Zubeldia and Cobo. They'll get the big cheers in their ears now, because they are Spanish and going home.
Well, they're looking to go over the summit of this climb, and they will hope to try and reintegrate the move at the front of the Tête de la Course with Alexander Vinokourov. But this is amazing, for we saw him yesterday. He was climbing through the Pyrenees like a broken man. He could not get his body over the climbs at all. Suddenly, overnight, he's recovered. He got himself into that breakaway, but he had the advantage of going over the climbs at his pace, the pace that he found comfortable, not the pace that was being dictated to him by the climbers like Rasmussen and like Contador.
Well, if he wins this stage, Paul, take your mind back to the climb when we saw Sergei Ivanov fall back from the breakaway to go and put Vinokourov in the front half of the split and then wobble and disappear from our screens. He put his team leader in the position to win the day, and Vinokourov now is off on his own at the moment. As we look here now at Bogart on the right and on the left Menchov. Well, Rasmussen sitting there just pedaling a low gear. I think this is a black mark for the contenders. They didn't try to hit him and check him out. They've just allowed him to come to the top of the Pyrenees in the group.
Well, Rasmussen riding very sensibly there. I think he dropped back to the wheel of Levi Leipheimer just to keep an eye on the American, because he feels that today is the chance that the American has of bringing himself just a little bit closer. That's where we're going to. The little V formation up there in the top of the hills is where the riders will breach the summit of the Col de la Pyrenees. These men are losing some time, but not too much. 21 seconds there behind Vinokourov.
Well, we're looking at the two chasers. Vinokourov is heading, it seems, to victory today. He's got about 12 kilometres to run. I must say, Paul, 12 kilometres. There's the zigzag, the nasty end. That is the Col de Pyrenees. Top left is the top. Then we plunge down towards the valley.
It really is nasty when you look at it, but look at the people that have turned out to see the race. People were moving up this climb for 2 days to get a good place for their camping cars, and in fact, when we came up here last night, the road was closed at midnight because they wouldn't allow anybody else up here.
That's and we came past here and they were having a terrific party. There was a little red tent in there, which was a beer parlour, still serving, but we didn't stop. We couldn't find our hotel. But now we can see it in daylight, and we're seeing one of Kazakhstan's greatest ever riders now push on, despite all his injury. We're looking here at the yellow jersey group here. They've now lost Denny Menchov. It's gone. I'm surprised at that, Paul, but Menchov has expended too much energy in the break.
Well, this is what happens when you bury yourself for the team. Then all of a sudden it's as if somebody turns out the lights. The engine room has got no more power at all, and Denny Menchov now has got to drag himself to the top of this climb. Jaimar Zubeldia has dislodged Juan Jose Cobo. He is riding to improve his place in the overall classification, but what he really wants is to win in front of a Basque crowd, because over the summit of this mountain here, Phil, it is completely covered with orange T-shirts, and those are the orange T-shirts of the Basque supporters.
He still has a chance here, but he's taking on one of the best opportunists in the world of cycling in Alexander Vinokourov. Covered in stitches, he's crashed, he won the time trial, he lost minutes yesterday. Now what's going on here? That is Frank Schleck, I think, in a spot of bother, as well as he comes back. Sastra is still up there, but when we see his face, Paul, he doesn't look as though he's enjoying it today.
Well, Kurt Adler-Arvidsson is the rider with Frank Schleck, and Arvidsson was again a man in that leading break of 25 riders. He's dropped back, and he now is being put into a situation where he's trying to defend the position of his team leader. Schleck is not having a great tour, 25th overall, not the Giro d'Italia that his brother Andy Schleck has at all.
No, he finished second in his first attempt, and he's in this race next year, but that's another tale to come. 6:15 the gap, they're not going to catch up. The flag there of Australia alongside Vinokourov. Very popular man in every country because everybody loves a fighter.
And a fighter he certainly is. He's been up and down really like a boxer this last 15 days of racing. He was on the ground in Autun, then he bounced back for the individual time trial, then he was on the ground again yesterday. There's been so many times, Phil, throughout the Tour de France that I thought that Alexander Vinokourov is going to abandon the race, but that's not knowing the man. That's not knowing the courage that he shows, and the fact that he wants to ride this Tour de France right the way through to the Champs-Élysées and Paris.
And I'll tell you what, Zubeldia there could well find himself in the top 10 tonight with the most to gain. He won't worry Rasmussen, Contador, Evans or Leipheimer, but he will move up, possibly into the top 10 if the gaps stay until the finish. He had the most to gain in the breakaway. Remember, we were 25. We don't know how many have been caught, but occasionally we see one or two as they fall back. Now, in that massive crowd, Paul, it's like spot the ball list. Can you tell me where he is?
Well, I was just going to tell you, I think cycling's losing an awful lot of its popularity over the last 3 weeks. But actually, there's Alexander Vinokourov right in the middle of that crowd.
Well, they've been waiting for this for at least 24 hours. The roads on the Péresur were closed before 10 o'clock last night. We were stopped by the police till they saw our tags on the car, and then they let us through. But they were letting no one up the mountain. There's the Union flag of Great Britain here, all cheering on Alexander Vinokourov. That'll get the adrenaline going for the man now as he comes to the summit of the Péresur.
And the amazing thing is, people, everyone has followed this man's story throughout this last 10, 15 days of the Tour de France. They know what he's been through. They don't care if he's from Spain or France or Belgium or anywhere. What they care about is what this man has done for the sport to stay in the Tour de France, to battle through all of the bad luck that he has. And now he's actually got this big flag that he's waving for Kazakhstan, and the Minister of the Interior came to visit the Tour a little while ago and said that Astana were going to sponsor the team for the next 10 years.
Well, it's nice to know you can get paid for the next 10 years. I suspect that Vinokourov will be the manager of the team as time goes on, because he hasn't got a lot of racing left in his body. He felt that this was the year for the Tour and probably his last shot at it. That's gone, but a stage win is just over the ridge here for him, and the crowd are doing everything they can to urge him over to the finish.
Well, this man, he did everything right for the Tour de France this year. He said he sacrificed everything for the Tour. He's got 31 seconds advantage now over Jaimar Zubeldia. And somewhere around the corner, he's going to see the summit of the Col de la Péresur. He actually said, Phil, when he was devastated yesterday, that he didn't think he could come back to the Tour to try and win it again. So hard and so dedicated had been his approach to the Tour de France this year. He felt that he'd given his absolute all, and that's why he won't give up. That's why he's looking for every little bit of glory in the 2007 Tour. 0.11 kilometres to go to the summit. From there, that banner, it's 12 kilometres to go to the end.
And 10 of those kilometres are downhill, maybe even nearly 11 of them. As he now gets to the top, it's time to zip up for the long descent. It is a very, very fast descent on this side. It's a very good road surface. Vinokourov tops the last climb of the day. Now, this is further down here. Kim Kirken has picked up Zubeldia, has he?
Well, Kim
How did he
Kirken,
do that?
he's managed to get his rhythm back. He's managed to recover. He didn't panic at all. That's the way the thing goes on a climb like this. You can have a bad moment, you recuperate, you find your rhythm, and then all of a sudden you recover.
At the summit of the Col de Peyresourde, over the top has gone Vinokourov. About 28 seconds later, Zubeldia here has been joined by Kim Kirken. Still climbing are all of the favourites. They're under the escort of Michael Bogart, Paul, and they have not attacked the leader all day.
Well, just looking at that group here, which is being led once again by Michael Bogart, I have to say, Phil, that every one of the top 9 riders is in that group. Not one man has made a move to attack Michael Rasmussen, but he's going himself.
Well, Contador has hit him. Contador's left it a little bit late, but there's still time here. And that was a very slow reaction from Rasmussen. He wasn't expecting it. He thought it was all over for the day.
Well, he thought that was it, and he's seen the move from Alberto Contador. You see every one of those riders, Phil. That's why nobody attacked today. They were all on the rivet. And look at Michael Rasmussen coming up to Alberto Contador. He's on his wheel.
And Contador double takes both sides of his shoulders. Now he's caught him. He'll probably say, all right, well, I'm stopping racing now if you're coming up to me. That was a good reaction, but a little bit late, but he was there in the end.
Well, he didn't think anyone was going to attack, looks over his shoulder, wants to know what kind of damage was being done. But that's, Phil, the explanation as to why nobody attacked at all. They were all on the rivet. They were all on the maximum until that man in the white jersey attacked.
And the man who put them there, Michael Bogart, today with terrific riding. They may as well ride. They're both gaining times. They're first and second overall in the classification. Why wait for anybody else just now?
Michael Bogart, he has done everything correctly this afternoon. He's been alongside his leader the whole of the afternoon. Every time that he's been asked to set the pace, he's come forward to do it. But look at the damage this move has done, and again it's Contador wants this.
Oh, what a great plucky rider he is here. Contador testing him again, and he's again forcing Rasmussen, who seems to have the answer in those long thin legs, as he tries to keep that white jersey in sight. This kid, 24 years of age, his first ever Tour de France. Johan Brunel has said it. He may not win the Tour this year, but he will win it one day.
Well, he's not going to give this Tour de France to Michael Rasmussen. Don't forget, we've got another big mountain-top finish to come when we go up to the summit of the Obis, and that may well be the move that will come from this man here. He's inside there. I didn't see the banner there, but he's not far from the summit here of the Col de l'Obis. He really is a phenomenal rider. I think it was the 1 kilometre to go banner.
It was, and look at this. They've got time here on the field. They should keep on riding here. And they can make it a 2-horse battle as we go to the Obis the day after tomorrow. And it's the 3rd time he's hit him. He's just such an aggressive rider.
I tell you what, Michael Rasmussen is really struggling here. You see how his shoulders are starting to bow down, and I've got a funny feeling that Alberto Contador knows this. He's finally put a little bit of space between himself and the yellow jersey of Michael Rasmussen. This, Phil, is the pressure of wearing the yellow jersey. Contador has cracked him.
He has, he sat down, but he knows he's nearly at the summit here. The damage is limited. Why, oh why, didn't Alberto Contador do this 10 kilometres from the top? Then he might have gone clear, because Rasmussen knows he can control this.
Well, Rasmussen is not panicking. He's got to ride himself back, but as we go around the steep part of the corner, Contador gets out of the saddle again, and another kick.
How many bullets has he got in this gun? This is the 4th kick by Rasmussen. They're wiping out now shop as they go past him.
Well, this is the first time, Phil, we've actually seen any weakness at all in Michael Rasmussen. Let's not forget, tomorrow's a rest day, then we come out to play again in the Pyrenees the day after this. This young man, Alberto Contador, he is just trying to break the spirit here of Michael Rasmussen. Rasmussen comes up alongside him. Psychologically, I think he was trying to say, oh, come on, let's work together. We can work this one out. But no way. Alberto Contador knows he's got him on the end of the hook.
4 attacks, but he's still 4-0 because he got nothing out of it. Now he's going to wait, because once over the top, it doesn't favour the attacking Contador anymore. It's down the finish. And let us not forget that, as far as we know, Vinokourov is speeding to the finish, but this is the race. Our cameras are rightly staying here.
Phil, when was the last time you ever saw a track stand on a mountain like this? And this is another move, because Michael Rasmussen, it's a little bit too short, this mountain, but this man Contador knows he's got him. It's a bit too close to the summit of the climb to get any big time gaps this afternoon. Well, but this is a psychological blow. They're in the confusion at the top. They're catching riders in front of them.
And this is what should not be happening. Nobody is. The neutral service is out of the way. Here we go. Well, there's George Hincapie. These are the guys who are being picked up from the breakaway. Hincapie looking over, seeing that it's his teammate Contador, and Hincapie's found his second life, because now he can lead this man on the descent. We are over the top of the climb, and they are back together. But Paul, just look now, George Hincapie, he's suddenly got his second win now. He's got Alberto there.
Well, George Hincapie will dig very deep into his reserves now, and he will go down this mountain like a man possessed. Because, yes, we have seen that Alberto Contador has put Michael Rasmussen into a spot of difficulty, but what he's also done is put time between himself and Cadel Evans. Levi Leipheimer is there. He's not going to move at all, but they're putting time between themselves and all of the other riders in the top 9 in the overall classification. And I think Alberto Contador will come out and fight again.
Well, Cadel Evans here looking far from happy. It's not been a great 2 days in the mountains, because he now has to start chasing down the mountain. So Cadel Evans looks over his shoulder. They're all on the chase down, and they're not too sure how to cope with this one. Just look at Cadel here, Paul. He looks over his shoulder. He's left alone, nobody helping him. He's got to close that gap, because he can't allow Rasmussen to take more time.
Well, I have to say, Kashakin and Kloden, they also need to work with him, because Kloden has still got a chance of getting himself a podium position. Carlos Sastre, I think he's just happy to be with the move here this afternoon, as he just tags onto the back end of this group. But I've rarely seen the attacks going like that on the slopes of a climb between 2 leaders, and we kind of forgot about Alexander Vinokurov's lone move.
Well, the only time I remember it is in the great days of Raymond Poulidor and Jacques Anquetil, when they always went mano a mano. And here we are now, the tricky descent here. He's still there, doing it all for himself, unaware of the fireworks behind. This man should have been involved in the fireworks for the win in the Tour de France. The bookies odds-on favourite. It never happened. He's now looking for a consolation prize, which will be a stage win. We are going under the banner, 3 kilometres to go, and the bends get a little bit tight down here now. But nonetheless, Alexander Vinokurov is still clear and racing for the stage win.
And if you look at the second group on the road, Phil, riding like this, they're not going to see the man from Kazakhstan again, because he is giving all kind of risks going round those corners. He really is a man possessed here this afternoon. He's gone round those corners at maximum speed. The sad thing is there's a nasty little climb at 1.5 kilometres to go, but I think he might take off the speed he's going.
I think he could use it as a speed ramp, absolutely, because this is going to be a road race win for Alexander Vinokurov. He got the time trial win on Saturday, completely blew up, and he even crashed yesterday on the way up, by the way. He hit a spectator and lost just a few more seconds, but really he was losing big time anyway.
Well, I think this indicates the kind of form that he had coming into the Tour de France. We got a glimpse of that form in the Dauphiné Libéré, and you can see there Haimar Zubeldia said, "I'm off, mate. I need all the time. I don't want to lose anything on this tricky little run into loudenvielle."
Well, Vinokurov hunting for what would be his 5th stage win in the Tour de France. He's won the time trial, as I say, on Saturday. He's looking for the second win here. He's now got 2 kilometres to go. Just a little bit more descending, then a slight kick. Well, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. You can't say anyway. His hat goes on the back of his head here. He just daren't look over his shoulder.
Well, right now he's just got to get over the summit of this climb. He's actually, Phil, not got very much to worry about at all, because his time gap is around about 52 seconds to the 3 chasers. He will go over the summit of this climb at 1.5 kilometres to go. He'll drop down a fraction, and then he's got to run into the finish line. He doesn't need to worry about any time in this Tour de France this afternoon, because he's a long way down in the overall classification. But what he's going for here is glory.
Alexander Vinokurov now is cresting the hill, and he's not cresting the Tour de France, but he is back. His name still very much part of this big race. This is the carnage behind here. Kim Kirken being escorted by Cobro, because Zubeldia has nipped away.
Well, Zubeldia at the end of the day is not going to win the stage here this afternoon, Phil, but he's going to make a nice leap up the overall classification, and he may well even overtake his own teammate, Mikel Astroloza, who is in 8th place at the start of the day. But George Hincapie is here, and I'm just having a look to see, this is amazing, because George Hincapie is swapping turns there with his teammate Alberto Contador.
And both of the riders, 1st and 2nd overall in the Tour de France in the last kilometres of the day, are gaining time over Evans, Leipheimer, Kloden and Sastre, left behind in that group. The interest really is here for the stage one, but it's back there with the top 2 riders of the Tour, again showing us they are also the best climbers of this race. This is the bravest attack we have seen. The man who has had so many stitches in his arms and legs, he's come back, he's at 1 kilometre to go. He won the time trial. We thought he was going to be back in the Tour de France, but he couldn't handle yesterday. He completely blew up. He waved at the cameras, and now another day in the Pyrenees, he's going to win it.
Well, he's going to wave in a different fashion when he crosses the line here, Phil, in less than a minute's time, because this man is absolutely storming, and he's got the time to enjoy that victory. And I think when he goes out the day after the rest day, he's going to have a massive number of supporters on the roads of the Tour de France, because this is the performance of a champion here this afternoon, and he's still not giving up. He's going to battle it all the way to the line. One last check, the true professional, and inside the last few metres.
And I don't blame him, but he's on his way now. He flicks up towards the line. The big crowd here are going to salute Alexander Vinokourov, the man who refuses to die. He's won at Gap, he's won at Briançon, he's won at Paris, he's won at Albi, and now he can add Val-Thorens at loudenvielle, because he's won here as well. Where he sits tonight overall won't matter, because he's still a Tour de France favourite.
Well, I think that face told it all. He really enjoyed that victory, and that was one that was a really special victory that he took out of the bag here this afternoon. These are second and third place riders on the phone, on the road. Kim Kirken in first place, Aymar Zubeldia in second. Zubeldia is going to make a nice move up the overall classification, because Michael Rasmussen is still 5.5 minutes behind.
Well, Zubeldia is somewhat desperate here, because he's a Basque and a lot of these people are Spanish. He'll be worried about Kobo as well in the backdrop. He won't help Kirken, because he desperately wants second place, and he'll hope he can take him in the jump. Kirken is leading to the line, because he possibly has got a top 10 standing again tonight. He's got to open the sprint, and he goes, but can the Basque rider get round him? I'm not so sure he can here, because Kirken driving on, and Kirken gets it. There is nothing left in Zubeldia, and Kobo is fourth.
Good for Kobo, but better for Vino, his second stage win in 3 days, and a shining testament to the quality of Kazakh dental care. A clear 51 seconds between Vinokourov and the pair in second and third, Kim Kirken and Aymar Zubeldia. Kobo just behind them, then Juan Manuel Garate and David Arroyo fifth and sixth. That was the race of the day. The race for the yellow jersey in Paris was still going on behind them, with Contador trying to shake Rasmussen even on the descent to loudenvielle, and the pair of them pulling away from Cadel Evans in the process.
And whatever happens, both are gaining time over the rest of the top contenders here. Rasmussen wants time over time trial riders like Evans, like Leipheimer, like Kloden, because the next time trial won't suit him at all.
Look at the face here of Contador, looking down there. He's so nervous and so ready for this, and he accelerates the line. But look at the face of Michael Rasmussen. It's a face of concentration, a face of a man today who has not had his best day in the Tour.
For the second day running, they both put time into Cadel Evans. 2 mountain stages had multiplied his 1 minute deficit on the race leader by 4, and he was also a minute 37 behind Contador. Most of all, though, it was a big day in the career of Alexander Vinokourov, but not half as big as the next day was going to be.